Is Marvel actually back, or was Thunderbolts just a fluke? Is the experience that this movie offers truly fantastic? What is going on, everybody, and welcome to my review for Marvel's The Fantastic Four First Steps. After Superman, this was easily my most anticipated comic book movie release of the year, definitely my most anticipated Marvel project of the year, and I think many fans share that same feeling. We have been eagerly awaiting the release of this film ever since it was announced back at Comic-Con in 2022, and with the release of Thunderbolts, I know it didn't do well box office-wise, but fan reception seemed to really dig Thunderbolts. Marvel is actually riding a bit of a high right now, and we are looking for them to keep up that momentum and deliver a movie for their first family that historically have been let down by their film efforts. The basic premise of this film is it kicks off with us already being 4 years into the existence of the Fantastic Four. They are the most famous people on the planet. They are very beloved and heralded heroes within their community, but when faced with the great threat of Galactus, they are forced to choose to either give up the thing that they love the most in this world or have the entire planet consumed, and through their decision they face scrutiny from the people of their alternative Earth for the first time, and therefore must scramble to find alternative methods to defeat the greatest danger that their universe has ever seen. Now, I myself have never seen the 1994 Fantastic Four film, but I know that that is not a movie that anybody really holds in high regard. But I was in my childhood years for the 2005 and 2007 releases. I've seen those numerous times throughout my life, and I still to this day do get a lot of nostalgic enjoyment out of those films. But I recognize that past that veil of nostalgia, there are a lot of issues with those movies. There's a lot of things in them that didn't really work in the time that they came out, and so they definitely do not hold up to today's standards. But the franchise really hit an all-time low back in 2015 when we got the release of Fantastic. That movie was an absolute disaster both in front and behind the screen, and it just felt like this was a set of characters that were destined to never get their day in the sun and really get a film project that could truly appreciate them and show off all of the potential and possibilities that these characters have to offer. But when it was announced that Marvel's first family would finally be joining the MCU, the flame of excitement for this beloved team was relit once again, and that excitement grew even more with other announcements involving the MCU that have come out, like the return of Robert Downey Jr. to this franchise. And the name of this movie tells a lot. This truly is the first steps towards our next Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday. And so, like I said, the excitement for this movie has grown and grown and grown as we have gotten closer to the release date. But with those high hopes also comes a lot of pressure for this movie to deliver. And even though, like I said, fan reception for Thunderbolts was high, people still have a lot of pessimism when it comes to the MCU. And now that with the release of Superman, DC is back in the mix, Marvel needs to deliver even more direly than they ever have before. So did they do that, and was this truly the film that we have all been anticipating? Well, I'll get into that, but first make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel as well for more movie reviews and content. Get down in the comments below and tell me all of your thoughts on Fantastic Four and the future of the MCU moving forward. I love to read anything you guys have to say. Now let's get into this review. So starting with the positives, and I think the first thing that stood out to me about this movie is just how stylish it is. This may be one of, if not the most stylish movie we have gotten in all of the MCU. I absolutely love the retro futuristic style and aesthetic that it operates in, and it's really no surprise how good this movie looks, as the director Max Chapman was also the director for the WandaVision series. That's a TV show that was incredibly stylized, and it definitely seems like he was able to bring a lot of the things he worked with in that show to this movie, and that's always such a breath of fresh air when you can see that in a movie within the MCU, because one of their biggest criticisms is how many of their movies just feel like they were directed or produced by committee, and you don't feel that way with Fantastic Four First Steps. Everything from the costume design to the environments to the sets and stuff like that, everything about how this movie looks is truly exceptional, and it definitely catches your eye immediately once it comes on the screen.
What?
But as pretty on the eyes as this movie is, I think what shined the most in this film for me is just the Fantastic Four themselves. I think this is probably some of the best casting that the MCU has ever done. Everybody within their respective roles does a fantastic job. Pedro Pascal, I know, is an actor that some people have grown tired of because they just feel like he's inescapable and he's in everything. But I just argue on the other side that the reason he is in everything is because he is good at everything. And him as Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, is just another example of that. I think he absolutely smashes this role, and I think he is a perfect person to carry the torch and be the leader of the next Avengers, as has already been reported. I can't wait to see him fill that role and expand on this character and really stretch it out. Eben Moss-Backrack probably had the biggest challenge of all the cast because he is the CGI character of Ben the Thing, and I think he does really well with what he is able to do. You know, being the animated character is a much bigger challenge, but I think they animated him really well. He was able to bring a lot of personality to the rocky exterior that the Thing has. Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch was a casting that was kind of heavily criticized when it was announced because it was during the time where he was Eddie on Stranger Things, and a lot of people felt like he was just the flavor of the week at that time, so they were like, we got to get him in a comic book movie. But I think he was absolutely awesome as the Human Torch. The Human Torch is my favorite member of the Fantastic Four, and he absolutely did me proud. He was funny, witty, charismatic. He was everything that you want the character of Johnny Storm to be, and I think anybody that was criticizing his casting in the beginning just flat out looks foolish now. As fantastic as everybody is within the team, there's definitely a standout amongst the group, and it is 100% Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm's Invisible Woman. She gives a phenomenal performance here, and as far as the cast goes, she is the one that leaves the biggest impact. There's a scene where she gives a monologue to a group of protesters, and it is one of the best pure speaking moments I've ever seen within an MCU film, or really just a film in general in all of this year. You 100% feel the anguish that is going on within her as she knows that she cannot give up the one thing in this life that she loves the most, but she can also not just allow the rest of the planet to die for her own selfish desires, and you feel the weight that she has to carry around as she faces this near impossible task. And so because of all of that, she is easily the one that I came away with being the most impressed with amongst everybody involved. Outside of the core team, I also have to give a massive shout out to Julia Gardner as the Silver Surfer. She's just so cool in this movie. I really can't think of a better way to describe her. Every moment she has on screen just had me absolutely glued to her and completely captivated. A lot of the movie's best action sequences are revolved around her, and I'm also just a big fan of the Silver Surfer character. Even going back to that not so good Fantastic Four sequel back in 2007, I've always been a big fan. I'm not as familiar with the Shala Ball version of the character, but I'll take any form I can get, and with this performance attached to it, I just cannot wait to see where this character pops up next, because even though she's pretty prominent in the movie, she's not like hidden or anything like that. I was craving even more from this character, so wherever she pops up next, whether it's Doomsday or Secret Wars, I will be eagerly anticipating that moment because she probably was my favorite character in the entire movie. I felt like as I was watching, at least for me anyways, it really seemed like Marvel made an effort to scale back on the comedy side of things for this movie. The MCU has always had a hard time knowing when and when not to crack a joke. There are a lot of instances and examples in their movies where they will completely sacrifice or disrupt the tension of a specific moment for the sake of dropping in a little quip or joke here and there, and I don't feel like that was happening nearly as much in Fantastic Four First Steps. There are still a ton of funny moments to be had here, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the jokes have a 100% success rate. This movie still has its fair share of misses, but those misses to me never felt as egregious as they have in times past, and they also never feel like they're coming at the expense of a certain moment. And even in the most dire of situations, when there are jokes being made, they're through the characters of Johnny and Ben, two characters that you would expect to be trying to keep things lighthearted, even in the most darkest of circumstances. So seeing that I also felt this way with Thunderbolts, it seems like Marvel is finally figuring out how to strike a better balance with their humor, and that's a nice thing to see because it was definitely a much needed improvement that needed to be done within the MCU. Moving on to the mixed, and here's where I want to talk about the special effects, because for a lot of this movie, I think the special effects looked really good, especially as it pertains to the heroes. This is a group of characters whose superpowers, if you don't have good special effects, they could come off looking really goofy. If you have Mr. Fantastic stretching out and it looks absolutely awful, that's going to be an eyesore. But I think for the moments where you get to see them put their powers on display, the special effects really came through and everybody looked really good. The stretching for Mr. Fantastic looked awesome. Johnny on fire as the Human Torch looked really, really good. The Thing was honestly phenomenal. I think they did a great job with him. There were times where it actually looked like it might just be the actor in practical effects because the animation on him was done so well. And Sue Storm, her invisibility powers aren't the hardest thing to pull off, but they did do a good job. So credit where credit is due. Where the special effects really are kind of not great are on the digital baby that exists in this movie. It's the child of Reed Richards and Sue Storm. And I don't know why they couldn't have just got a physical baby for these moments. Maybe there weren't any baby actors available when they were shooting these scenes, but it is a bit distracting on a lot of them. The baby looks very weightless when it's getting passed around and moved around to others, especially when Ben is holding the baby. Because he too is CGI'd, they feel so detached from one another, even though he is supposed to be holding the baby. It just doesn't merge that well. And so there are some other moments like that, like the Silver Surfer. There's times where she looks a little off, but I would say for the most part, she looked good enough. Galactus, I think, was impressively done. I didn't see any issues with him. It really is just that baby where I think the special effects were a bit shaky in terms of its quality. They didn't knock it out of the park, but I think for the most part, it was done okay. I'm just throwing it in the mix because there are some eyesore moments here and there. Even though I do enjoy the action sequences in this movie, we really only get like 2 of them for the entire movie. There's a chase sequence between the Silver Surfer and the Human Torch, which is actually my favorite individual moment of the movie. The special effects here look awesome, and some of the individual shots of the Silver Surfer during this moment are really badass. And then you have the final confrontation with Galactus towards the end of the movie, which I also think was done really well, and you get to see the Fantastic Four finally fully being the Fantastic Four. But a lot of this movie is more so focused on the family side of these characters, which I did enjoy. Don't get me wrong, the family dramedy aspect of this film is great, and they did a really good job at immediately endearing you to these characters the second you meet them. But being that this is a comic book movie, you do want to see some more of those comic booky moments. And being that they did really execute the action sequences that we did get, I would have liked to have seen some more. So this is just going in the mix because the ones that we do get, I think, are fantastic. I just wanted to see a little bit more of those moments. Moving on to the negatives, and just like how I said I would have liked a bit more on the action side of things for this movie, I think wanting more in certain regards is what my biggest negative critique for this film is. Coming in at just an hour and 55 minutes, this is one of the shortest movies we have gotten in all of the MCU, and being that this movie is trying to accomplish and achieve so much in just one movie, I don't know if that was enough runtime to perfectly executed everything that they were trying to do. They have to introduce us to these characters, give us a short little origin story, explain to us their stance in society and how the world views them, introduce a giant villain like Galactus as well as the Silver Surfer, execute and have this entire conflict play out, while also getting us excited for the future of the MCU because the Fantastic Four are going to play a big part in that. And that is just a ton to have to cram into one of the shortest runtimes we have seen in this entire franchise. And I think who suffered the most from this shortened runtime was the character of Galactus. Now, my knowledge on Galactus is not that vast. It's pretty surface level, but I do know enough about him from the comics to know that in terms of like power level, he's pretty much an S tier Marvel villain. He's pretty substantial, but this movie doesn't really ever do anything or give him enough time for me to get all that invested in him. To be honest, I really didn't care about Galactus for the entirety of this movie. And the MCU does have a history of fumbling the ball when it comes to quite a few of their more notable villains. And so I'm sure we will get more Galactus in the future. At least I hope so, because if this is all that we get of him, then it was a pretty disappointing outing and kind of a waste of a character of his magnitude. I'm really glad the Silver Surfer was here to kind of carry my weight, or carry the weight of him and my intrigue in the opposition for this movie, because as it pertains to just him, I didn't feel anything for the character. And if a longer runtime could have allowed for maybe one or two more action sequences, then I think there could have been a bit of a two birds, one stone outcome where we get some more of those superhero like moments that I do feel the movie is missing at times, while also propping up the big bad of the movie a bit more. But because the runtime is a little bit condensed, I don't think the things that we are typically accustomed to getting a lot of attention got as much this time around. And so it left certain aspects of the movie either not being as good or as prominent as they could have been. So with Fantastic Four First Steps, I think this was another quality offering from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I liked it a little bit less than Thunderbolts, but it was still the movie that I hoped it would be, and I felt like it was another encouraging sign that the MCU is headed into the direction of a brighter future as we get closer and closer to the release of Avengers Doomsday. This was easily the best Fantastic Four movie we have ever gotten. I know that's a pretty low bar, but it's an accomplishment in and of itself. If you are still an MCU fan, I definitely recommend you go check this out in theaters. Even if you still are on the fence, even after Thunderbolts, keep giving it a shot. They're definitely getting better and improving upon the things that we have been missing for the last couple of phases within the MCU. But I think we are headed to brighter days, like I just said. Once you do see the movie, make sure to come back here, get down in the comments below and tell me what you thought about it. Did it deliver on the hype that you may have had for it? Or did you feel like it disappointed like previous MCU projects and Fantastic Four projects have done in the past? Make sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel as well for more movie reviews and content. I would love to have you here, and I will see you all in my next one. Peace.